Deep within Scandinavia exists a family dynasty whose wealth rivals technology billionaires, yet whose names rarely surface in public consciousness. Their corporate empire spans industries touching billions of lives daily, from pharmaceuticals to telecommunications. Yet they've engineered their affairs so masterfully that they appear on no wealth rankings. This family has navigated 6 generations without succumbing to the typical curse that dissolves most fortunes by the 3rd generation. They've survived world wars, economic catastrophes, and political upheavals by perfecting a singular skill, remaining unseen while controlling vast swaths of European commerce. This is the story of Sweden's Wallenberg family, a dynasty that transformed invisibility from a defensive posture into an offensive weapon. When you contemplate influential dynasties that shaped modern capitalism, certain names immediately emerge. The Rothschilds and their banking network, the Rockefellers and their petroleum empire. But before dismissing the Wallenbergs as merely another wealthy family, consider this. Their business holdings are valued at approximately 150 billion euros, placing them in the same stratosphere as the world's most visible billionaires, yet achieving this while maintaining near-complete anonymity. From AstraZeneca to Ericsson and numerous other corporations traded on global exchanges, their influence permeates sectors that fundamentally shape contemporary life. Yet you'll never observe them displaying ostentatious wealth, purchasing luxury vessels, or dominating media headlines. They've achieved something extraordinary in our age of constant visibility. They've made power invisible. The foundation of this empire traces back to mid-19th century Sweden, a nation brimming with potential but critically lacking the financial infrastructure to realize that potential. The country possessed abundant natural resources, innovative minds, and entrepreneurial spirit, but capital remained scarce and difficult to access. Into this environment stepped André Oscar Wallenberg, a former naval officer who returned from America in the 1850s, carrying ideas that would fundamentally reshape Swedish commerce. André had encountered a book discussing banking establishment, and this sparked a revolutionary concept for Swedish economic development. In 1856, he founded Stockholms Enskilda Bank, Sweden's first private banking institution. Before this innovation, securing financing meant approaching the central bank directly, a system that stifled creativity, suppressed competition, and hampered economic expansion. André envisioned something different, pooling small savings from ordinary citizens and deploying that capital to stimulate economic activity. He drew inspiration from Scottish banking models, where distributed deposits fueled widespread prosperity. His concept was elegantly simple: circulate money efficiently and watch the entire economy flourish. But establishing a bank represents merely the beginning. Truly transforming a nation requires someone willing to scale that vision aggressively. That person emerged in André's son, Knut Wallenberg, who joined the family bank and transformed it from a local institution into an international financial powerhouse. Under Knut's leadership, the bank accumulated substantial wealth remarkably quickly. The pivotal moment arrived when new legislation restricted banks from holding excessive industrial shares. Rather than viewing this as a setback, the Wallenbergs saw opportunity. In 1916, they created Investor AB, an investment vehicle that would become central to their enduring influence over Swedish industry. This maneuver set the dynasty's trajectory for the next century and beyond. Knut and his wife Alice, having no children of their own, made a decision that would prove transformative for both the family and Sweden. They committed their entire fortune to national development, funding projects throughout Stockholm and beyond. More significantly, in 1917, they established the Knut and Alice Wallenberg Foundation, dedicated to advancing research, science, technology, and medicine. This wasn't mere charity. It was strategic positioning that extended their influence far beyond traditional banking. Meanwhile, Knut also immersed himself in Swedish politics, serving as foreign minister from 1914 to 1917, further cementing the family's connections to state power. When Knut's responsibilities expanded, the family business passed to his half-brother, Marcus Wallenberg Sr. Marcus embodied a particular breed of industrialist, utterly focused, almost ascetically frugal, and obsessed with reinvestment rather than consumption. He wore pocketless jackets and turned them inside out when fabric wore thin, channeling every resource back into building the empire. Luxury held no appeal. Construction consumed him entirely. He became deeply involved with major Swedish corporations, including Esse, which later became ABB, Norsk Hydro, Atlas Diesel, which transformed into Atlas Copco, and Scania Vabis, now part of Volkswagen. He guided these industrial behemoths through their most challenging periods following World War I, becoming Europe's preferred negotiator and arbitrator as the continent struggled to rebuild. Marcus assumed Knut would bequeath everything directly to him. After all, Marcus had labored tirelessly expanding the family fortune. But Knut had different plans. Before his death, he placed his entire fortune into the foundation structure. Marcus initially felt betrayed by this decision, failing to grasp its brilliance immediately. Only later would it become clear that this move represented the family's greatest strategic triumph. Without the foundation structure, the Wallenberg wealth would have fragmented across multiple heirs, diluting over generations until it vanished entirely, as happens with most family fortunes. The foundation changed everything, keeping their riches concentrated, focused, and protected across generations. Even with financial security established, the Wallenbergs' greatest challenge loomed ahead, emerging from one of history's darkest periods. As Europe plunged into World War II, Marcus's legacy passed to his sons, Jacob and Marcus Dade Wallenberg. These brothers would navigate roles that would define the family's character in ways nobody could anticipate. Jacob assumed increasing responsibility at the bank, becoming CEO by 1927 and holding that position for 19 years. His leadership guided the institution through the Great Depression's trials and war's approaching shadows. But he couldn't yet comprehend how deeply entangled the family would become in the conflict engulfing Europe. Sweden maintained official neutrality during the war, but the Wallenbergs played an extraordinarily dangerous game, conducting business simultaneously with both the Allies and the Axis powers. Jacob became Sweden's primary trade representative to Nazi Germany, while his younger brother Marcus Dade worked with Allied forces. On paper, Sweden remained neutral. Behind closed doors, the Wallenbergs negotiated with both sides, walking an impossibly narrow line between pragmatism and complicity. Their connection to Nazi Germany extended beyond simple trade. Stockholms Enskilda Bank allegedly cooperated in laundering assets looted from occupied territories, including property seized from Jewish victims. This represents a dark chapter where financial transactions potentially fueled both sides of the conflict. Yet simultaneous with their Nazi dealings, the Wallenbergs secretly supported efforts to overthrow Hitler. They served as covert intermediaries, passing messages between German resistance groups and Allied forces. Jacob even met with German resistance leader Karl Goerdeler in 1943, their final meeting before Jacob's involvement became exposed, making any return to Germany a death sentence. When the famous July 20, 1944 plot to assassinate Hitler unfolded, Jacob was positioned to receive confirmation of the coup's success. But as history records, the assassination attempt failed. The bomb detonated, but Hitler survived. The messenger was captured, imprisoned, and executed. Gordeler met the same fate shortly thereafter. While Jacob navigated these treacherous political waters, his nephew Raoul Wallenberg embarked on an entirely different mission. When Hungary's Jewish population became the Nazis' next target in 1944, Raoul was dispatched to Budapest with an extraordinary assignment: intervene to stop the deportations. Hungary's 700,000 Jews faced deportation to extermination camps. Once in Nazi-controlled Hungary, Raoul employed every conceivable tactic. He forged passports declaring Jewish individuals under Swedish protection. He physically pulled thousands from trains heading to death camps. He intercepted Jews forced into death marches, rescuing them in broad daylight. In the war's final days, when Nazis prepared to annihilate 70,000 Jews remaining in Budapest's central ghetto, Raoul bravely intervened, negotiating and threatening until he prevented the massacre. This immense contribution cannot be overlooked. The Wallenbergs emerged from Europe's darkest hour with enhanced influence. But as peace arrived, the carefully constructed Wallenberg image began fracturing. American troops discovered documents exposing troubling connections. Records revealed that Stockholms Enskilda Bank maintained a shell relationship with Bosch, a major German corporation apparently helping Nazis conceal assets. This revelation proved explosive. In 1945, United States Treasury officials blacklisted the family, designating the Wallenberg brothers as special blocked nationals. This was the financial equivalent of exile, but with global stakes involving international trust and credibility. Back in Sweden, citizens began questioning what else the family might be hiding. Their reputation suffered severe damage. Meanwhile, something even more personally devastating unfolded. In 1945, as Soviet forces entered Budapest, they detained Raoul, accusing him of espionage. He simply vanished. For years, the Soviet Union denied knowledge of his fate. Decades later, they claimed he had died of heart failure in 1947 at merely 35 years old. But the truth remains unknown to this day. What makes this tragedy particularly troubling is what happened next. The Wallenbergs focused on rebuilding their wealth and prestige internationally. Surprisingly, this included extensive dealings with the Soviets, including plans to loan Stalin's regime $250 million. One cannot help wondering, could the Wallenbergs have leveraged their influence to advocate for Raoul's release? Was business prioritized over pressing the Soviets for answers about a family member who saved thousands? These questions remain unanswered. The Swedish government also remained silent regarding Raoul's fate. A man who rescued thousands was apparently abandoned by those who could have saved him. Around this time, Jacob considered retirement. He had built an empire and guided the bank through extraordinarily turbulent times. In 1946, he stepped down as CEO, marking an era's end. Leadership passed to his younger brother, Marcus Dada Wallenberg, who would prove equally formidable. Marcus didn't simply maintain the empire. He reshaped it actively, transforming Atlas Diesel into Atlas Copco, playing major roles in developing Sweden's Saab fighter jets and managing complex trade arrangements. Marcus remained central to every major decision for 50 years, from the 1930s until his death in 1982. But immense power brought crushing pressure. The family legacy's weight proved difficult to bear, and time took its toll physically. Marcus had two sons, Mark and Peter Wallenberg. Between them, Mark appeared destined for leadership, prepared from early childhood for this role. His education, career path, everything was designed preparing him for this moment. He worked tirelessly merging two major Swedish banks, Skandinaviska Banken and Stockholms Enskilda Bank, creating the modern SEB we recognize today. The pressure was relentless. Everyone expected him to succeed brilliantly. Then in 1971, something nobody anticipated occurred. At just 47 years old, Mark Wallenberg took his own life. It was heartbreaking and represented an enormous family loss. So much had rested on Mark's shoulders: legacy continuation, empire leadership. His tragic death created a void in the family business. His brother Peter had mostly avoided the spotlight, but suddenly found himself thrust into leadership. Peter had chosen a different path from traditional family expectations. Rather than entering the family business directly, he started at ground level at Atlas Copco in Africa, working his way upward, building his own career. His relationship with his father had been strained. He knew he must forge his own future. But Mark's sudden death redirected Peter's trajectory unexpectedly. The family needed him. Though not the chosen heir, he stepped forward, determined to shoulder responsibility despite others' doubts. When Peter's father died in 1982, he assumed leadership of the family business. Nobody considered him the right fit. Doubt surrounded him. But Peter was determined to prove everyone wrong. Over subsequent years, Peter didn't merely manage the business. He took it to unprecedented global levels, pushing through major restructurings, buying back shares in Atlas Copco and Stora from Volvo, thereby securing the family stake in those corporations. He accomplished this by launching Patricia Industries, which became crucial to their investment company Investor AB. This marked only the beginning of Peter's lasting impact on the family legacy. Where does the Wallenberg family stand today? If you thought their previous influence was substantial, prepare to be astonished by how far it truly extends. The empire now rests in fifth-generation hands: brothers Jacob and Peter Wallenberg Jr., along with their cousin Marcus Wallenberg. The numbers are staggering. According to the Financial Times, the Wallenberg business empire is valued at approximately 250 billion euros, placing them alongside figures like Elon Musk in terms of financial power. But unlike Musk, you'll rarely hear about the Wallenbergs in news cycles. That's because much of their actual wealth remains hidden within foundation structures. Most of the Wallenberg empire's assets are locked within foundations. This sophisticated structure helps them avoid inheritance taxes, while ensuring no individual family member can simply withdraw funds for personal gain. The foundations control more than $30 billion in assets. They also maintain major stakes in publicly listed businesses, collectively worth over $660 billion. This explains why you'll never see the Wallenbergs on Sweden's rich lists. Their wealth exists, but remains sequestered within family-managed foundations. Their control over Sweden's economy remains unmatched throughout Europe. Historian Håkan Lindgren, who has written extensively about the Wallenbergs' rise, notes that every Swedish government, whether left or right, has been involved in the Wallenbergs' rise right-leaning, understands they must work collaboratively with the Wallenbergs. It represents what's best for Sweden. What truly distinguishes the Wallenbergs is how they've built and sustained wealth across generations, avoiding the curse of the third generation that typically sees founding wealth dissipate by grandchildren. Jacob, Marcus, and Peter, now in their late 60s, continue running the empire while preparing the sixth generation for eventual succession. Passing wealth across generations is challenging enough. Passing values proves even more difficult. And here, the Wallenbergs truly excel. These individuals don't inhabit the spotlight. They focus on managing their businesses effectively, and it shows. They follow a family motto derived from Latin, Esse non videri, meaning to be, not to seem. They're not pursuing fame or chasing publicity. They concentrate on what matters substantively. They rarely grant interviews, and when they do, discussions focus exclusively on business, institutions, or philanthropic activities. Personal lives and political opinions remain private. Yet despite this discretion, their power, influence, and control remain absolutely real. The Wallenbergs are often described as kingmakers, as the Financial Times frequently characterizes them. Another publication labels them the best-paid charity workers globally. This combination of power and philanthropy renders them virtually untouchable. Because challenging the Wallenbergs means challenging Sweden itself, and few would dare attempt that. Their ability to remain invisible while controlling corporations like Ericsson, AstraZeneca, and Saab proves nothing short of extraordinary. Despite massive influence, they've avoided appearing on any wealth rankings. They maintain privacy, avoid the limelight, and employ sophisticated strategies like the foundation system to preserve family wealth across generations. They are undoubtedly financial geniuses, but they're also shrouded by a troubling past involving cooperation with Nazi Germany and potentially prioritizing business interests over moral imperatives. A man who saved thousands of lives was seemingly abandoned by those who could have rescued him. These contradictions define their legacy. In the final analysis, the Wallenbergs remain masters of discretion, having perfected the art of wielding enormous power while remaining almost completely invisible to public scrutiny. Their story demonstrates that in the modern world, the most powerful families aren't necessarily those making headlines. Sometimes, the most influential dynasties are those you've never heard of, operating quietly behind the scenes, shaping industries, economies, and even nations, while carefully avoiding the spotlight that might expose them to unwanted scrutiny or challenge their carefully constructed systems of wealth preservation and power projection across generations.